Good evening and welcome to Midweek Devotional. We are continuing to look at the book by Martin Copenhaver, Jesus is the Question, pointing out that Jesus asked over 300 questions and answered less than 10. Tonight, we are looking at some questions that Martin Copenhaver interprets as questions about the reach of love. I think he's accurate. Some of the questions come from the story of the Good Samaritan, or the story we generally call the Good Samaritan. Let me read you that, found in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. Just then, a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." He said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this and you will live." But wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And so Jesus tells a story and then asks another question or two. Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper and said, 'Take care of him, and when I come back I will repay you whatever more you spend.'" Then Jesus says, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" He said, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Jesus responds to the questions of this lawyer, this learned man of the law, by characteristically asking a couple of questions of his own. What is written in the law? What do you read there? And there was an easy answer. He said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your being, all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." But he couldn't leave well enough alone. He asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" I like the way Copenhaver interprets the question of the lawyer. He is asking, in essence, quote, "Who am I obliged to love? My family members? Those who live in my community? Those who believe the same things I believe?" So Jesus answers the lawyer's question by telling the story we commonly call the story of the Good Samaritan. I like also the way Copenhaver interprets this. He said the parable, as in many parables, functions like a Trojan horse. You let the story end, but by the time you realize it should be defended against, it's too late. The Trojan horse story gets past the defenses of the lawyer, only waiting for the captivating question to complete the conquest. What do you think? Which one of these 3 was a neighbor to the man who encountered thieves? Notice he doesn't say the man from Samaria. He said the one who showed mercy. And so Copenhaver tells a story. When we're young ministers, we do things we sometimes wish we had not done. But he was going to have an object lesson for children in Sunday school. And so during that hour, he parked his old car about a quarter of a mile from the church and put the hood up, stood by it with a couple of pathetic-looking children that he told them to look like they were in need. And he said they didn't have to make it up. They always did anyway. He stationed several other children in the bushes nearby with note cards and bouquets of flowers. He told them, now when people stop to help us, I want one of you, not all of you, but one of you to run out and give them a bouquet of flowers with a little note that says, "Thank you for being a good Samaritan." Well, as chance would have it, nobody stopped until it was almost time to retrieve his car and take the children back to church. And then a lady in a station wagon came by. You know it was a long time ago if it were a station wagon. And she passed by, and then she stopped, and she backed up, and she got out. And she said to her little boy, "Tim, what on earth are you doing out here?" One of the little pathetic-looking boys was her son. She said, "Mama," or he said, "Mama." And of course, the pastor explained the object lesson he was trying to teach. Every child with a bouquet of flowers and a note rushed around her and gave her all of the flowers and all of the notes, and they all left smiling. He tried to make his point to the children. On the walk home, he said it was obvious all the children were pleased. They were excited. They beamed like fishermen that had caught a big catch. He was trying to get a meager lesson from the experience, something about the importance of helping those in need. He said, "I did not have the heart to tell them that what happened that morning was precisely not what the parable of the Good Samaritan intends to teach. It is not about helping members of your own family, nor is it about coming to the aid of others we know. A mother helping her child in distress does not expect to receive a bouquet of flowers. The reason the Samaritan is singled out in the parable is not because he helped the traveler by the side of the road. He is singled out because he's the least likely to have helped the traveler on the side of the road." In Jesus' day, Samaritans and Jews did not have anything to do with each other. They lived separate lives and believed different things. They were bitter enemies. So if a Samaritan saw a Jew being beaten and bleeding by the side of the road, that would have been occasion for satisfaction for the Samaritan. Among all those who saw the injured Jew, the Samaritan was the least, had the very best reason, I should say, to say, "What has that to do with me?" But in the story Jesus tells, the Samaritan sees him as a neighbor. It is such a radical notion that we often lose our grip on the implications of the story. The reason the Samaritan is singled out in the parable is not because he helped the traveler by the side of the road, but rather he's singled out because he's the least likely to help the traveler on the side of the road. Nobody needs to be told to care for the basic needs of our families and friends. We do that. Who is my neighbor? Backing up a little in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus asked more questions about the reach of love. Luke chapter 6, verses 32 through 34. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. These are questions about the reach of love. They're rhetorical questions, but they have only one answer. Martin Copenhaver tells about a missionary by the name of Lloyd Van Vactor. Lloyd had been pastor of the church that Martin pastored back in the 70s. And by then, Lloyd and his wife Maisie were missionaries in the Philippines. They were captured. He was kidnapped and held for a ransom. He was held for a total of 21 days. Even before email, the news got back home, and there were prayers going up for Lloyd and his wife Maisie. In the end, he was let go. He was returned, but by then, for what reason Martin doesn't explain, Maisie, his wife, had died. So while he was in captivity, his wife died. The church took up a collection, and they decided to use it and to create a memorial fund for students that went to the school in the Philippines that Lloyd taught at. It was a memorial fund for young ladies. And so after all was said and done, they asked Lloyd for his blessing for this, if this was okay. And he wanted to designate it. He chose the college students who were part of the very Muslim sect that kidnapped him and threatened his life. He decided to give aid not just to American young women, but to young women from this Muslim sect that tried to take his life. Jesus' words, if you love only those who love you, what credit is that to you? Who is my neighbor? Who do you think was the neighbor in the story? It's a question, but embedded in the question is an unsettling answer. If you love only those who love you, what credit is that to you? Questions about the reach of love. In a world that is going to war again, and many people are opposing one another, maybe this question Jesus asks of those in his hearing in the first century is a question we need to hear and answer in the 21st century. If you love only those who love you, what credit is that to you? Think on these things. Have a good evening. Good night.